Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti. I am MrPhotographer.com. A few days ago I was surfing around Amazon.com looking to spend money that I should be saving for my children's education. In doing so, I stumbled upon this 16-stop ND filter. So I'm wondering, how good is it? In this video, we're gonna find out. This filter is made by Format High Tech. No one is sponsoring this video at all. I bought the filter with my own money, and it ran me $125. I'm not going to be getting into too much detail on how to use an ND filter. I have a video that explains in detail how to do long exposure photography with ND filters. It will be linked up above and in the description below this video. Also in the description below this video, I'll have links to all the equipment I'll be using today. Whenever you're using such a dark ND filter, you should first set up your camera and compose the scene with the filter off. Once you have the scene composed, take a test photo. I have my camera in aperture priority mode with an aperture of 5.6 and my ISO is 64. Whenever you take a photo without your face in front of an optical viewfinder, you should cover the viewfinder so no stray light will get in there. If stray light gets in there, it could ruin your shot. It often will result in a purple to green color cast over your image. On my camera, I have a little lever over here to the side that I could slide out, and it puts a cover over the optical viewfinder. If your camera doesn't have that, just get a dark, like multi-fiber cloth and drape it over the back. Now, if your camera has an electronic viewfinder, you don't have to worry about that. So now that I have the camera set up, the scene composed, the viewfinder blocked off, I'm simply going to take a test shot. And I have it focused, by the way, too. Now, when you take your test shot, take note of what your shutter speed was for the test shot. In this case, it's a shutter speed of 1/320th of a second. Now, since this is a 16-stop ND filter, the resultant shutter speed I will get when I have this filter on is going to be slower than the slowest shutter speed my camera can supply. The slowest shutter speed my camera can produce is 30 seconds. So if I put this on, all my images will be underexposed. So what I'm going to have to do is put the camera in bulb mode. In bulb mode, as long as I'm holding in the shutter will stay open, and I could time it out to the correct length of time in order to get a proper exposure. I don't want to keep my finger on the shutter button that entire length of time. So instead, I'm going to use a remote shutter release. Okay, I quickly put the shutter release on the camera, and I picked this up at Amazon too, and if I remember right, it was less than $40. And again, I'll have links to all the equipment I'm using in the description below the video. So what I need to do now, before I screw this filter on, is put my camera in manual mode. So I'm gonna quickly do that. And then I'm going to use the same f-stop I used, 5.6, and the same ISO of 64 that I used when I took my test shot. But I'm going to put the shutter speed into bulb mode. Now it's in bulb mode, and now I'm going to carefully screw on the ND filter, being careful that I don't upset the focus, zoom, or the composition in any way. Now I have to determine how long I need to keep that shutter open. I use an app called ND Timer. With ND Timer, I have to just enter two different variables. First, the shutter speed I used when the filter was off, which, as you remember, it was 1/320th of a second. And then I have to dial in the type of ND filter I'm using. And it's a 16-stop ND filter. So it's telling me that my shutter should be open for a total of 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Now with this wireless remote, it has a bulb mode on it. And all I need to do is press the button once and it will open the shutter, and it has a timer on it. And the timer will count down, and when it hits 3 minutes and 24 seconds, I'll press that button again to close the shutter. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to just press the button once, and my camera clicked. It now has the shutter open and it's counting down. When that hits 3 minutes and 24 seconds, I'll hit that button again to end the exposure. Now, I'm not going to make you stand there and watch the entire thing, so we're going to fast forward. Okay, 320, 321, 322, 323, 324. I just ended the exposure. I'm going to check it out, see what it looks like. I'm going to preview it. And actually it looks pretty good, but it's hard to tell in the back of the camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the studio. I'm going to load the images on my computer and we'll take a look at them there. And we'll see how good this ND filter actually is. All right, I have the two images in Lightroom, and this is the image that was taken without the ND filter on the lens, and it's the straight raw file. There's no processing done in this at all. And next to it, I have the image that was taken with the ND filter on, and again, no processing was done on it at all. And you could see it really did a nice job. The main issue one might have with an ND filter, particularly a cheaper ND filter, is it will put a color cast on your image. Some ND filters put a warmer cast, some put a cooler cast, and sometimes it takes a lot of work to get rid of that color cast. And I'm really impressed with this ND filter. The image with the ND filter is very slightly cooler than the image without the ND filter. And other than that, I mean, it's really did a nice job. Now, you may notice, as I flip between the two, that they're not perfectly the same, meaning this one, the building's a little higher. When I screwed the ND filter on, I wasn't apparently careful enough to make sure that I didn't move anything. And what probably happened is the tripod wasn't really on stable ground. So the tripod leg probably shifted a little when I was putting the ND filter on and I didn't notice it. But it really is no harm, no foul. It didn't really mess up the composition that much. But you do have to be very careful when you're doing that. Now, one thing I meant to mention in the video that I forgot to mention is focusing. I use back button focusing exclusively on all my cameras. So on this image, the original image that was taken without the ND filter, I used back button focusing and focused on the steps. When I pressed the shutter button, my camera didn't try to reacquire focus. And similarly, when I put the ND filter on and I used the remote to trip the shutter, it didn't try to reacquire focus. So I focused once with the back button. I was careful not to touch the focus ring. And when I put the ND filter on the camera, or on the lens, I should say, and then when I used the remote to trigger the shutter, it didn't try to reacquire focus. Now, if you do not use back button focus, although I encourage you to use it, it really will help your photography, and you should check into it, how to use it for your model camera. But if you don't use back button focus, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to focus for the image with the filter off. Then once you're satisfied with the composition and the exposure is correct with the filter off and the focus is the way you want it, you're going to have to turn autofocus off on your camera, then screw on the ND filter and go through the routine like I did in the video, so that your camera doesn't try to reacquire focus with the ND filter on. And because the filter's so dark, it won't be able to acquire focus and you'll get a blurry shot. So what I'm going to do real quick that I think is I'm going to process this. This is the image, of course, without the ND filter. It was a little hazy. You probably noticed the light was changing a lot too when I was doing the video, which was kind of frustrating. But I'm just going to dress it up a touch the typical way I normally might. And I'm just going to go very quickly and bring this up. And then I'm just going to go to real quick HSL. And I'm going to brighten up the yellows a little bit, bring down the greens a little bit, brighten up the orange a little bit, and darken the blue a touch. Okay, I'm going to go back up here. I think I have it a little bit too much fire or too much saturation. I'll bring this down. So, okay, this is very quick processing of the image that was taken without the ND filter on. I'm going to go to the left panel and copy those settings. I'm going to copy everything but white balance. I'm not going to copy white balance. I used auto white balance in the camera for both exposures. In the description below this video, I'll have all my camera settings so you could understand what I used, what settings I used to capture these images. So I'm going to jump over to the other image now, and I'm going to go to the left panel, and I'm going to paste those settings on this image. And there they are. So you can see there's the one without the ND filter and the one with the ND filter. Now, I really have to say I'm really impressed with this ND filter. Usually a quality ND filter is very expensive, and $125, although not cheap, it's actually very reasonably priced for this ND filter. But I really like this. I think it worked out well. The light was horrible. It wasn't the best day to be taking a landscape image, or the best time of day, although it was like 10 in the morning. But came out pretty good. Now, one thing I do want to mention real quick, another advantage to using a really dark ND filter like this 16-stop ND filter is it will get rid of people. For example, if you look here, now this is Saturday morning in the busiest park in Buffalo, and you can see that there's a lot of people walking around. There's people up here in the building on the second floor looking around. And then when I took this image, it just looks like it's deserted. That's because it's letting so little light in, and it takes so long for the exposure to happen that the people just don't appear because they're moving. Now, if there was someone sitting on a bench that entire time, they'd probably be a little blur there. But other than that, I don't even see that. There's nothing there. So I recommend, if you're traveling and you're going to a touristy city that has a lot of tourist attractions, to pack a travel tripod and pack a 16-stop ND filter, and you'll find that you'll be able to get rid of the people around all those tourist locations. And if you'd like, I'll do a video demonstrating how that's done. Just mention in the comments below that you'd like me to do that, and I'd be glad to do that. But again, very impressed with the ND filter. In the description below will be links to all the equipment I use in the video, including the ND filter. Remember to get the ND filter that fits your lens. Also, all the exposure info will be there as well, and the camera settings where I focused, all that stuff. So that, in case you have any questions about any of that. I'd like to just thank everyone that watches my videos, and if you could do me a favor, hit the like button. I really appreciate it when you like my videos, share the video, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little bell that's next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get updates when I post new videos. Thanks again. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.